Logan Paul may be a true boxing hotshot, but he hasn't made major headlines for a long time now. But a new press release has declared that the YouTuber is ready to throw some serious punches. Is this a hint that he's returning to boxing? Let's find out. Firstly, is Logan Paul going to make a return? The Maverick seems to be back in the game with intensive boxing training. Logan Paul announced to the world that he's resumed training to sign a major contract for a boxing match at some point this year. Paul announced in a press interview that he was motivated by his brother Jake's knockout of former UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley in December. He said that he was just starting to train again and that also he was hoping to get a fight by the end of this year, mainly because he wanted to one-up his brother Jake Paul, who recently had a match with Tyron Woodley. Paul last fought in June when he took on the legendary boxer Floyd Mayweather Jr. in an exhibition. Mayweather Jr., who is also an undefeated 5-division world champion, seemed like he wasn't operating anywhere near peak performance in the match. He looked like he was going through the motions for entertainment value only. Even the 26-year-old Ohio native admitted afterward he wasn't sure Mayweather was giving it his all in the fight. He even told reporters that he felt Mayweather was letting him survive during the match instead of knocking him out. But even though Mayweather was probably faking it, Paul felt that it was the coolest thing in the world to share a ring with him. But things went south between both fighters soon enough, and Paul has since threatened to file a lawsuit against Mayweather, saying he hasn't received full payment for the exhibition. The longtime boxer's response was dismissive, saying that these kinds of delays are common in the world of pay-per-view boxing. Next, his new Instagram story. Paul may be ready to come back, but he didn't mention any potential opponents for his return flight. He hasn't even discussed whether it would be a pro fight or an exhibition. Not just this, Paul also has hinted towards a possible switch to MMA, though it sounds like he's still focused on boxing for now. But he recently added some new Instagram stories where he was seen landing some cracking left hooks on a punching bag. The stories were added on Kirk Myers Fitness's official Instagram page, where the YouTuber was seen relishing his time landing those punches. As you might have expected, fans went ballistic and demanded to know when Paul was deciding to make a comeback. Now, some other highly anticipated boxing matches 2022. If you're also wondering when Paul is making a comeback to boxing, he might have left us some hints. Almost a month ago, Mike Malek opened up on Logan Paul's next outing. Malek didn't reveal the exact date for his return, but confirmed that Paul might be fighting this year. But fans would still prefer to hear something directly from Logan Paul's end. Also, there's no set opponent for him at this stage, and it'll be interesting to see whether Paul fights professionally or is part of another exhibition. As you might already know, Paul has helped open the door for YouTubers to take to the boxing world, but he wasn't the first from the industry to bout, as Joe Weller and KSI fought in a match in 2018. After beating Weller, KSI decided to challenge Paul, and the American star accepted. Then the pair went toe-to-toe in August of the same year. A potential future fight could be against the star Mike Tyson this year. Anticipation is building as Paul chooses to remain silent on the details of his future fights in 2022. But one thing's for sure, if he comes back, he's gonna come back with a bang. Now, his boxing record. Paul's current record stands at 0 wins, 1 loss, and 0 draws. To be fair, that's not a bad record. But it's also important to note that Paul has only fought in 3 fights, one of which was during his amateur career and another was an exhibition. His only professional loss was to KSI in 2019. His first fight with KSI in 2018 was ruled a draw, and the pair decided to fight again on the 4th of September 2019. The British star was judged the winner through a split decision. Paul then shocked the sporting world when he got Mayweather to compete with him in an exhibition event. The fight, held on the 6th of December 2020, went the distance of 8 rounds, but no winner was announced. Now, in other news, will Jake Paul fight Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz? Logan Paul has always had big hopes for his younger brother and has said that his dream fights for him are clashes with UFC stars Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. He also added that he will never doubt his younger sibling again, so it seems like Jake has finally proven himself to him. Did you know that Jake Paul has 3 wins over professional mixed martial artist? He is a talented fighter since he knocked out ex-UFC star Ben Askren and also beat former UFC champion Tyron Woodley by a knockout and on points. When he spoke to the MMA Hour, Logan Paul said, "I remember a time not long ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, and I'm ashamed to say this because I'm his brother and I love him, but I had chalked him up." But he also added that his brother is a persistent fighter and continues to put in the work. And for him, the results of Jake's efforts are clear. Logan went on to say that he was done doubting Jake's abilities and was inspired by him since Jake exceeded his expectations. The older Paul now does not doubt that his brother could fight even bigger stars than those he has already beaten. "I'd love to see him fight Nate Diaz and then eventually Conor McGregor," he said. "I think that'd be such a cool fight." Will McGregor and Diaz agree to fight with Jake? With Logan Paul's return to the boxing arena, this this might be possible. Next, praise for Jake Paul. Logan Paul also praised brother Jake's efforts to improve fighter pay in the UFC. He was proud of how Jake went against the UFC president Dana White and gave him a piece of his mind. But even though he was entertained by the banter between Jake and Dana, he clarified that even though he has to side with his brother, he was a huge fan of Dana White and the work he had done. He was also extremely proud of how vocal Jake was about issues that affected him and his fellow fighters, even though he's still pretty new to the UFC arena. And since Jake isn't employed by White, he can do and say whatever he wants. Logan also said that, "I think in 3 to 5 years, people are going to realize how significant he was in changing the landscape of the sport. It seems that the older Paul has a lot of faith in his younger brother and sees him as a potential UFC star in the future." Will Jake Paul fight against Dana White and improve fighter pay for the UFC community? Guess we'll have to wait and see. Lastly, Mike Tyson praises the Paul brothers. Mike Tyson is all praise for the Paul brothers. He said that both brothers are a big shot in the arm of boxing and that they are impressive in the ring. As you might already know, the pair started in the sport in the headline event of Logan versus fellow YouTuber KSI. In that fight, Jake featured on the undercard and boxed KSI's younger brother Deji, who is also known as Comedy Shorts Gamer. Tyson has also noticed how Jake is undefeated after fighting the likes of UFC fighters Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley. Tyson says the brothers are exactly what the sport needs. He also said that they are a big shot in the arm for boxing, since no boxer has ever brought that many people into the UFC network like Logan and Jack did. And since they're bringing money to boxing, they might just be the best thing that happened to the game in the last couple of years. He added that he believes big names get in the ring with the pair as they think they can get an easy win. But something very different happens instead. Since trained fighters are often confident that they'll win against the brothers, they usually sign up for fights against them not knowing how competent the brothers are. But both Jake and Logan Paul have proved that they're not just pretty faces. In fact, they pack quite the punch and have the ability to defeat some highly trained fighters in the industry. Logan doesn't currently have plans to get back in the ring, but Jake is currently being baited by Tommy Fury to fight on the Fury vs. White undercard. Seems like both brothers are ready to take on a challenge in the ring again. What do you think? Will Logan Paul continue to improve as he returns this year, or will the new year be a disappointing one for him? Will the Paul brothers continue to stir up trouble with their controversial statements in 2022? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.